and welcome back to this training series on FEMA P-1000, Safer, Stronger, Smarter, a guide to improving school natural hazard safety. You're watching Module 4, Engaging the Whole Community and Moving Forward with School Natural Hazard Safety. This is the fourth of 6 training videos that are outlined here. Module 1 was an introduction to FEMA P-1000. Module 2 reviewed identifying relevant natural hazards and making school buildings safer. Module 3 provided guidance on planning school emergency responses and disaster recovery. In this video, Module 4, Barry will describe the importance of engaging the whole community. Looking ahead, Module 5 will discuss the supplemental technical guidance found in FEMA P-1000. And lastly, Module 6 will go over some funding resources. So with that, Barry, take us away.
Thanks, Gigi. As you can see, this is a module where we're going to talk about the whole community approach, engaging with the community in communication strategies. So our nation's traditional approach to managing risks associated with natural hazards had relied heavily on government resources. But beginning in 2011, FEMA created this whole community approach to emergency management in recognition that a better plan was to engage whole communities in thinking about and planning for new pathways for action. So what is the whole community approach? Well, the definition in the guidebook there is the whole community approach to emergency management recognizes that all resources in diverse segments of the community must be fully engaged in order to most effectively prepare for, protect against, and respond to, recover from, and mitigate against all hazards. It's also important to note that all members of the community need to have a voice, as community members and leaders are best situated to identify those local assets, capacities, interests, needs, and goals. So let's look at the approach. The foundational principles of this approach include 1, understanding and meeting the needs of the whole community, 2, engaging in empowering and involving parts of all the community, and 3, strengthening what works well in communities on a daily basis. Also, engaging the community prior to the hazard event can help build what is called cultures of preparedness for schools and school leaders. This list of community partners will include perhaps an overwhelming amount of information. The big idea is to see everything around you as a potential point of contact to engage others with an important concept. Pick and choose your easiest points of entry and get started. We'll look at many of these groups in the following slides. So what do we need to think about in engaging our community partners? Well, community relations need to be built and actively maintained over time, not just during a hazard event. That engagement can be achieved by involving local partners and community stakeholders in a variety of events that focus on preparation and education regarding natural hazards. Things such as commemorations, drill participation, like the Great Shakeout, this is related to earthquake awareness, with local partners, annual events, weekly gatherings, or other creative approaches are good ways to involve community stakeholders. Schools should consider engaging in a variety of stakeholders, which we'll further describe in these next few slides. So first, let's talk about children and youth. Children and youth are vital stakeholders in any school-based community preparedness and response and recovery effort. Research shows that children express the desire to learn about hazards and engage in activities to help adults and help other young people and help themselves. Schools can incorporate natural hazard information and risk response into their curriculum. Programs outside of school hours can also incorporate disaster preparedness for youth. Involving youth in safety preparations and disaster response builds student leadership and increases overall community resilience. Schools should place a high priority on involving school children and youth in mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery activities. The Teen Community Emergency Response Team, or Teen CERT, engages youth in natural hazard planning. Schools can use Teen CERT to engage youth in school emergency management planning and promote student preparedness. FEMA has established the Teen CERT to help equip high school students with basic response skills and understanding of emergency preparedness concepts. CERT basic training includes skills such as fire safety, light search and rescue, team organization, and disaster and medical operations. However, children should never be asked to take roles that will place them in harm's way. Adequately trained, empowered students can step up and assist in emergencies if they are given the opportunity and trust by adults. Also, assemblies after school, activities, student clubs, school exhibits, competitions, safety drills are all good ways to engage students in developing school hazard safety strategies. This is where locally specific thinking is really important. Design professionals, architects, and engineers can be invaluable partners in helping to explain the fundamentals of building safety. Each community should know the specific process that school boards go through to evaluate and improve schools for natural hazards. In my experience, many in the public are confused and unsure about the decision-making process, and school board members are often overwhelmed with their responsibility. Finding ways to be helpful and not hurtful can establish a very common ground. So design professionals really help determine the building's vulnerabilities, providing recommendations for prioritizing actions such as retrofitting options for improving safety of schools. They can also provide guidance on new school construction, and they serve a critical role in assessing the safety and severity of the building damage following a hazard event. Another group is educational professionals. These include school district leadership teams, school board members, school administrators and staff, teachers, members of the school's security, safety, or crisis team, agency-appointed mental health agents, grief counselors, risk managers, legal counsel, educational spokespersons. So these professionals can offer resources and guidance on policy, funding, stakeholder relationships, continuity of academic programs, and much, much more. Education leaders can help craft school emergency management plans and work through the preparedness planning process. Elected officials, these include school board members, mayors, city managers, legislators, city council members, county commissioners. This group is generally run on a platform associated with can generally run on a platform associated with school safety and education. Leaders can engage with school system representatives to build awareness and support for planning, preparedness, recovery, and response. Elected officials are called upon to represent their constituencies, making a close partnership with school leaders very important. Emergency management professionals, they are professionals who provide invaluable information to schools regarding preparedness, response, and mitigation activities. Here in Utah, our emergency management department has a special person called the Earthquake Lady, who is specifically tasked with making presentations to groups, that's schools, parents, PTA organizations, etc., about non-structural safety. Things like anchoring bookcases or computer equipment are some examples. School leaders should be well connected to the leaders of fire departments, law enforcement agencies, emergency medical services, and emergency management. These connections are vital to ensure that school plans align with emergency management plans. In other words, if they consider schools to be shelters, we should know about it. And if our schools aren't capable of being shelters, we should be telling them about it. These first responders may provide life-saving assistance in hazard events and can assist in recovery process. Labor bargaining units. These are organizations such as the National Education Association, NEA, the American Federation of Teachers, as well as state and local unions. Unions can help guide school districts on work-related and human resource issues during the planning process. Also, during the recovery process, unions can help in recovering by spearheading drives to gather relief funds, donations, and offer disaster relief grants for union members, excuse me. Local businesses and industry, members of the private sector often donate to schools. Relationships with local businesses and industry can help secure contributions for mitigation, response, and recovery. Parents may be business owners and may need to focus on that aspect of recovery as they are also focusing on children's recovery. Local community organizations, community and faith-based organizations that focus on social services provide collective good and often play an active role in identifying resources and supporting preparedness outreach activities. Some of these might include the American Red Cross Disaster Action Teams, the Community Emergency Response Teams, or CERT, as we've mentioned, the Salvation Army, the voluntary agencies active in disaster. Schools should also engage with local and regional community groups. Local hospitals, hospital administrators, staff, and clinicians are vital players in assisting and coordinating an integrated response and recovery, particularly during a large-scale emergency. Hospital staff can provide valuable guidance on healthcare risks and prevention planning, as well as collaborate on medical response protocols and procedures that they will be using. Local jurisdiction public agencies. These relevant agencies might include the Public Works Department, the Planning Department, Public Health, Social Services, Healthcare, Child and Family Support Services. These local agencies can provide specialized services to key community facilities such as schools. These agencies are focused broadly on health and vitality and sustainability of local communities, making them natural partners to schools. Another important group is the media. Developing solid relationships and strategic partnerships with key media representatives and social media influencers is crucial. Media professionals have enormous power in terms of informing the public of pressing issues and shaping local political and social agendas. School officials should be prepared for local and even national media outlets to take an interest in school safety issues. Following the 2020 Magna, Utah earthquake, public officials were being asked questions about the damage to facilities and schedules for reopening buildings. This underscores the importance of being prepared for how you might address questions from the media. Important to recognize that media professionals are not experts in natural hazards and may be limited in their understanding of the hazard events. Timely and regular release of clear and consistent information should be provided to the formal press and all interested individuals covering events. All information should come from a single point of contact. Access to school spokespersons, leaders, and other experts should be provided. Access to impacted facilities, staff, students should be closely regulated. Parents and caregivers. Parents, grandparents, caregivers are key stakeholders in children's lives, providing a wide range of expertise, educational awareness, support, and resources for preparedness activities. Support school safety through legislative channels like the Parents and Teachers Associations. Communicating with the community. So it's important that schools conduct preparedness campaigns, special events, educational classes, social media dialogues, and other pre-disaster engagements before an event occurs to build a school and community-based culture of safety. Building a clear and consistent actionable message through trusted voices builds awareness and buy-in. And best practices that we would recommend for engaging and communicating with these stakeholders include engagement with the formal and informal stakeholders, use of innovative personalized outreach and trusted communicators, linking of community activities with disaster preparedness activities, and sustained coordination and sharing of resources. So some of the key topics that we think about when we want to communicate with the community, notifications of planning efforts. If you're about to do some studies of your schools, community should know those kinds of things. Awareness about the risk. If you discovered certain risks that were unknown, communicating them to the community is important. Explanation of emergency response protocols and procedures that you might be developing in your emergency operation plan. Tools and technology platforms used by schools and officials and responders. School community resources available during a hazard event. And then any updates on ongoing mitigation or reconstruction projects are also great ways to communicate with the community about what's going on. So some of the things that you might consider doing before an event is communicate to that wide range of stakeholders. Communication about the hazards, the risk, the emergency plans can be done as part of the preparedness informational campaigns while holding special events and classes through social media dialogues. Knowledge of potential hazards and consequences of hazard events should be shared with the community members. And being mindful, especially of vulnerable places and people or rural-urban divides or income gaps is also important to communicate. Planning efforts and opportunities for engagement and feedback should be communicated to the stakeholders. They should be knowledgeable about the things that you're pursuing in developing emergency operations plans, for instance. If the school is an evacuation shelter, it must be planned ahead of time with community leaders, with sections of the school, which sections will be used, how the shelter will be operated and managed, who is responsible for the supplies, how the school will be cleaned, and how the expenses will be handled. Emergency response plans, protocols, procedures should be shared publicly so that the community members and parents know what to expect and what they should do when a disaster happens, whether children are being sheltered in place or being held in a different facility. When a major safety concern is identified, information should be communicated in an honest, clear, and productive way. Sharing information about potential solutions concurrently with sharing risk information can be reassuring, but urgent issues should be shared regardless of the plan or the development stage that you're in. Outreach and education to key stakeholders ensures an up-to-date information on hazards, risks, and existing or developing emergency plans. Having a communication strategy that utilizes a variety of distribution channels will have greater success. And then in communities where multiple languages are spoken in the school, in the homes of students, providing translation services is also a critical need. Now, during the emergency and recovery phases, things that you'll want to consider are regular, honest, and transparent communication with internal and external stakeholders is vitally essential during an emergency and throughout the recovery stage. Clear communication should inform the community about progress and successes, as well as needs and concerns and issues. Outreach reduces irresponsible and inaccurate speculation and keep stakeholders focused on the learning programs and school recovery. During the 2020 magnitude 5.7 earthquake here in Magna, Utah, earthquake rumors were disseminated that Utah could experience a major magnitude 9 earthquake. This was false, and it needed to be addressed quickly by the experts to help reduce that panic. The communications plan can help streamline responses to media inquiries. Timely information through honest answers, ongoing dialogue, addressing rumors, providing contact information, and emphasizing care and compassion and honoring responders and the deceased are some of the tips communicating after a disaster. So in the recovery phase, following through with the community after a recovery phase is an excellent way to make a community more resilient to future events. Opportunities to learn from the experiences and shared ideas to better prepare and respond are invaluable. And this is an opportune time to update the plans that you have from the lessons that you've learned. An example of this is related to the Joplin School District and the tornado, which we had talked about earlier. The superintendent of Joplin Schools, along with other district and volunteer leaders, led the recovery and communication efforts in the months following the major tornado event that they had there. Building on pre-established communication tools, they set goals, created clear strategic messages, and ensured consistent, timely responses to the media. Communicators employed a wide range of outreach methods. On the first day of the new school year, just 86 days after the tornado, every major news channel and network was there. So let's talk about some of those tools and technology for effective communication. Each school district is best positioned for identifying the methods most effective in communicating with their target populations. The most frequently used methods for communicating to the community are loudspeakers, newsletters, text messages, electronic automated telephone systems, emails, websites, social media, mobile apps, and electronic signs and billboards. With the ubiquity of smartphones in many communities, social media is the go-to information distribution source. School leaders should consider appointing a person or team to manage the school's social media engagement before and during a hazard event, and then schools should track the engagement of all media messages, including the social media. So moving forward, well, first of all, we'd like you to get a copy of FEMA P-1000 and read it. We want you to think in terms of taking those actionable steps. What can I do next to move school safety forward? And then share the P-1000 with your community. Make sure that people are aware of this new resource and that they're engaging in conversation with you about things that will move school safety forward. with that, I will turn it back to Gigi to see if there are any questions. Gigi?
Thanks, Barry. A couple questions. So first, what are some of the benefits that can come from focusing on building a culture of preparedness in your community?
Well, I guess one of the things that I uh, think is valuable is just continuing the conversation with other people in your community. I mean, having opportunities to share together your exposure to hazards with your other partners, but building this idea that we are talking about this as something that's important to a lot of different people in the community. So sharing your vulnerabilities, for instance, as a school district or a school building official with the community obviously starts the conversation that we need help in determining how we can make these things right, how we can find resources. So this culture of preparedness really comes from the idea that you're helping other people understand that it's not just you solving a problem, but it's all of us, and we need to be prepared. And it should be an important question that we share the answers to. So that would be my take on it.
Great, thanks, Barry. So next question. The need to work with the whole community is understandable, but it can seem really daunting to need to build connections with so many different community partners. Do you have advice for how someone might prioritize which community partners they focus on in the early planning stages?
Yeah, that section in particular, we were all as a team overwhelmed by the number of people that we actually saw as viable community partners. And indeed, it's something only, as I stated, I think, where you want to be able to start the conversation. You want to know that there are things that can cascade into other partners being aware of what work you're doing. As far as starting, I think you start with the people that you're already working with. So if you're in a school district, you're probably working with your school boards and communicating to them the importance of school safety, particularly existing buildings. So you'll want to be strengthening that and creating a relationship that builds upon itself. In other words, the school board may then reach out and say, who else can we involve in this conversation? So it's really important just to get started, Gigi in particular, rather than to think I've got to tick off all of those people that I saw on those slides. That's not the concept. The concept is you'll never know until you start the conversations where it'll lead, nor who would be interested in helping you formulate a good, solid plan.
Great, thanks, Barry. So this concludes training module 4, engaging the whole community in moving forward with school natural hazard safety. In the next module, module 5, Barry will go over supplemental technical guidance for natural hazards. We hope to see you there.